Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond Dimensional. We are here for a second time, and probably second for another dozen times with Jim Esker. He is a fantastic psychic medium. He knows all the things about all the things, and we really wanted to come back and talk to him a lot more about astrology, of course. He's given us previews of what our charts are for me and Lori, but before that, so there's all sorts of different charts, and we were kind of touching on last time. If you didn't listen to the first episode, go back and hear it because Jim gives a great kind of first explanation of a lot of different things in astrology, and his abilities stemmed. But we're going to look back at natal charts, and I know there's a lot of different charts, and there's a lot of different things that you can see from someone's original, like your birth into it. One of those things is intuition and powers. And I know that Jim's gift must come from the stars, etc., but they also come from his line, his lineage. And I know that Lori has a similar story. So we have Jim back. We wanted to make sure that everyone got to hear kind of how his birthing charts came to us. So how did that happen for you, Jim? I know that you have a lot of powers wrapped up in your mom and her line as well.
Yeah, so my mom had intuitive abilities. She was pretty good at forecasting stuff, but she got her information through dreams. So, she'd go to sleep all relaxed and comfortable, and she'd wake up and she'd say, oh, so-and-so's going to be pregnant, or so-and-so's moving, or, so-and-so's changing jobs or getting divorced. But all these things would come to her through a dream. And as I began to develop and work with my abilities and get better at it, it got a little competitive there. My mom told me when they were talking, and I forgot what I was telling her. I was telling her about something that I was predicting coming up. But she looked me square in the eye and she's like, well, I'm more psychic than you are. And I kind of looked at her and I was like, what? I'm like, okay, Mom. I go, but you got it easy. You get it in dreams. You're asleep at peace. Everything's honky dory. And all of a sudden you get this information. I go, I'm getting it wide awake. I'm getting it walking down the street. I'm getting images just as I zone off. And I go, and for me, it was a challenge because I'm over here thinking I'm half crazy, schizophrenic, something's going on.
Yeah.
And mine, I kind of forced me to learn about it. It was a pathway that took me to actually learn more about it, study it, fine tune it, hone it down. And in that process is where, to your point, I came across astrology, because astrology was the first thing that I looked into. But from my mom's side of the family, it came from her side of the family. And then gradually, as you reveal more, and I think as they became more accepting, then you would hear stories of, oh, grandmother this or aunt that, or oh, I get this stuff now and then, but I don't tell anybody. So you get the good and the bad, right? You get those that start to get a little out the closet supportive, and then you get the ones that always think you're crazy.
Yeah,
They're like,
totally.
oh, yeah, that's the special son over there. He's just a little touch.
Don't mind him.
Yeah, he's okay. He'll be in the corner over there watching everybody, but he's not thinking anything bad.
Oh, it's so interesting, right? And I laughed because the first thing I said, I think a couple of the mediums we've talked to have said, and then you said, is like, at first we all think we're schizophrenic. I mean, that literally we're like, okay, I'm hearing things. What's wrong with me? I'm losing my mind. So it's funny because it's definitely a process, right? And it's not, it's an amazing ability to have. And I'm very, very grateful and thankful that, I met someone like you that really helped me kind of open up and use these things. But it's also can be a burden if you don't know how to harness it and protect it. And, like we talk about, my challenge is like, it comes from everywhere. I don't know how to make it stop. And you're helping me figure that out. But it's a lot. McKenna, my daughter, she also gets premonitions. And so she gets her information through dreams. And I think she'll continue to get more. She's already kind of getting more. But it's a different time. And we talked about that with my mom in the second episode. It's like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we weren't talking about people being psychic openly. Now I can say and you can say, and we're not being stoned to death.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, back then everything was more conservative, right? So
Yeah.
if you start talking about that kind of stuff, you were crazy.
Yeah.
For me, it was a lot of, oh, that's just your imagination playing with you. Oh, you're crazy. And so you start to believe it. I have 4 brothers. You're the only one bringing this stuff up to the table. And I'm a middle child. That's a double whammy. So you
Yeah.
get both of those things together, then you feel kind of isolated, while you're growing and developing. But it kept coming back. You would shut it down, you would suppress it, you would try to push it away. But I think if it's something you're supposed to work with in this life, something that you came in with, it's going to keep coming back. It's going to
Yep.
keep coming back
Agreed.
until you work with it again.
So
Yeah.
with
I
your
believe that.
mom, James, was it similar to Lori's where she grew up in a, an earlier generation where it was not like her premonition, she never really thought about them as premonitions. She was just like, "Oh, I'm having dreams." Or did she recognize her gifts? Like was she the one also kind of telling you, "Oh, no, 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 it's just your imagination." Like how was that relationship? And did your kind of coming out of the broom closet, so to speak, help her identify her own dreams as premonitions?
Well, my mom was, or is, she's still alive, but she was raised conservative, Catholic. And
Hmm.
so she would do the prayers, what they call in Spanish, the novenas. She had a strong faith. So for her, it coming in dreams really didn't phase her. It wasn't like, she's washing the dishes and all of a sudden a voice pops up and says, "Oh, call your son." She had strong, what they would call in those days, mother's intuition. So,
Mm.
with 5 kids, 5 boys, I'm sure her intuition was working overtime. My dad on the other side was way more conservative. Was more like, it's your imagination. You're crazy.
Mm.
Just go to sleep. That kind of thing. So for him, he was very skeptical. I would say more of a non-believer as far as, intuitive abilities. It didn't really resonate with him, but with my mom, it did. She didn't, as I progressed, she did ask me for advice. She didn't ask me to help her tune in better. Because for her, it was, I guess, natural. She grew up in Mexico for the first, I think, 15 years of her life, 14, 15. She came to the United States when she was 14 or 15. So over there, it's a lot more accepted. If you have premonitions and intuitive ability, it
Mm.
was more accepted there than here. But as far as her and I working together with it, we really didn't until that one day she said, "I'm more psychic than you." So that told me, so you recognize the ability.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
That is funny. So did you have you guys gone head to head? Or are you like going
No,
for a match or like, okay, let's think about this person, like you tell me, and then like you get to be like, haha, drop the mic, mom. Got you.
that would have been kind of cool. But I didn't really do a lot with my intuitive ability with my family because there was a
Yeah.
lot of resistance to it early on.
Yeah.
As I progressed, and then as I started doing it more openly, as I started doing readings and then started doing groups, um, and doing it more on a professional type level, and then when I started getting hits with them, then they became, they started to come around a little bit. Even my dad came around a little bit. I got
Hmm.
messages at one time from my grandmother, his mother. And so I'm sitting there talking to him one day. "Hey, Dad, did my grandmother blah, 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 did my grandmother blah, blah, blah." And he kind of looked at me. He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, she's telling me this and blah, blah, blah." So he came around a little bit, but it was a hard sell for him to accept it or to believe in it. He was more, if you don't see it, feel it, and touch it, it ain't real.
Yeah.
Even kids going to church. We went to Catholic church and all that. My brothers made their first Holy Communion and all that good stuff. But for me, church was next to a park. I used to ditch the park. So
I
that
understand that.
yeah. So that was important to my mom that we had that spiritual upbringing.
Yeah. That makes sense. So thinking about astrology, and I know that was kind of like the gateway for drug for you. When you started studying your chart, did you see your abilities kind of written in the stars, so to speak?
I did to some extent, but I'm very intuitive, but I'm also very skeptical. So
Yeah.
even when I'm doing the work and I'm connecting with the other side, I tell the other side, "Well, you need to prove it to me. You need to give me
Mm.
something that they can validate. Otherwise, yeah, you're just talking." Or it's my imagination. In my chart, I could see it. I have an eighth house moon in Pisces, which is pretty intuitive, and it trines Neptune in the fourth. It's these aspects. But I actually asked, I had that first astrologer that did my chart. That told me I was a medium, and I told her she was crazy. But
Hmm.
since then, I had joined a meetup group long, long time ago, and we would go over charts. We would study astrology. We would meet once a month. And so I asked some of them, they're like, "Yeah, you have strong intuition here. You have this planet, and this house and this planet and that house. And that shows a flow of energy for that skill set. Because to me, it is a gift, but it's an ability. And like any other ability, the more you work with it, the more you develop it, the better that you get. And so I started working and trying to develop it. It was an interesting journey, and a lot of strange things happened along the way.
Yeah. That's very cool. I'm imagining that so when you notice something like that on someone's chart that you're doing a reading for, do you always mention it, or do you like, I feel like that's something that's almost, you kind of have to play it close to the chest, because you might, even someone's open to astrology, they may not be open to hearing, like even with Lori, in your relationship with her and how you've helped her to open up her gifts. I imagine there might be some resistance to some people where you're like, they're not ready to hear about their gifts yet.
Well, you would think that if it's in the chart, they have some inclination of it, because it's going to have manifested itself in some kind of way at some point, depending
Yep.
on how old you are when you're doing the chart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. I have friends now that are recently getting married, and they're having children. And so I'll do the charts for the kids, and I'll send it to them. And I'm like, okay, these are the areas you should focus on, this sort of pitfalls. And a lot of times you have strong water signs and charts of people that are intuitive. And when you're reading them, a lot of times you can sense it. If I'm talking to somebody and they have intuitive abilities or their mediumship abilities, I can kind of feel it. It kind of draws me in a different way. But with that, a lot of times in the chart, you got to look for caution when it comes to drugs and alcohol, because a lot of times I think that spiritual energy is floating around in there, and people don't know how to work with it or how to use it, so they end up drinking and drugging to kind of suppress it.
Yep. That was my mom's story as well. She talked about that in her episode. So I think self-medicating is a thing,
Yeah, I used to
for
drink.
all kinds of stuff. Uh, oh, so James, you were the first person to ever do my chart. I recall. To help me figure out kind of the top 3 and some of that. And then Liz, I don't, outside of me and Chris playing on time passages, I don't know if you've ever had a full chart reading, have you?
No, never. I'm so excited.
Yeah, because we talked a little bit about it last time. But now that James has all our info, I mean, selfishly, we want to know about us.
Heck yeah. I'm sure all the people listening are like, yes, I want to hear about Liz and Lori. Like, I
Yeah,
give a shit about their
boring,
charts. But maybe,
boring.
hey guys, listen to all of our details. If you're close by, maybe if we're close in charts.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting with the chart, with your guys' charts and our charts, because I think the last time we did the first podcast was when Pluto got out of Aquarius. I mean, out of Capricorn, was going into Aquarius. And today's a new moon.
Oh, God.
I actually have you guys' charts here because I pulled them up, your natal and the new moon. Because where the new moon is, that's where you're going to plant seeds. That's when you start something new, right? So you
Oh,
begin to start something new during the new moon, and then it starts to manifest and show itself around the full moon. But it's a process that you grow and develop. And usually, about 6 months, you're working with that energy in that new moon. And Lori, your new moon is right on the cusp of your 12th house, 12th and first house. So it's all the internal things that how the 12th house deals with, and the self, because it's so close to the cusp. It might even be in your first house in a tropical. I'm using equal house system. So if it was in a different house system, it might be completely in the first house, which would be working on the self, new things that you're doing for yourself. And Liz, yours is in, let's see here. So yours will be planting new seeds in communication, short distance travel, siblings, all that kind of stuff.
Siblings.
Yeah, you might be.
My sister's coming to town in a few weeks.
There you go. Yeah, yours is in the third, and yours is in the. And then Laura, you just had a lunar return.
yes. It does
what
not
does that
mean that
mean?
my 16 years of shitty karma is over.
No, that means the lunar
Not just
return
yet.
is the lunar return is the month. It's your emotional thing for the month. And I think
Oh.
yours is in the 9th house. I was looking at it earlier, and I did pull it up and print it out. I just didn't get a chance to send it to you because I was trying to make sure I had everything set up so that when we started, I
No
wasn't
worries.
struggling.
Yeah, no worries.
And so I'll send it to you, but I think it's was it your 9th house? It deals with philosophies and learning, long distance travel, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it makes
But
sense.
I pulled it up, and I'll send it to you after we're done here.
Sounds good. I love that. So what about Liz and I together if we compare charts? Is there a reason why we are where we are with each other, doing this podcast, BFF,
Give us the Venn
BFF
diagram.
soulmates
Well,
over here.
yeah, you probably have, let's see, charts that are interacting within each other, maybe personal planets. I don't have just your birth chart. I have the dual charts, the transiting charts. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to see. But usually when you have something like that, maybe your nodes are intersecting. Your north node is where your north node is, or your ascendants are aspecting each other. There's usually planets that connect you, that are in harmony with each other. So because the energy is good, right? So there's a flow of the energy and it's positive. Just like if you meet somebody that you don't like, then if you had their chart and your chart, maybe there's an aspect in there. There's an opposition, or there's a square, and the energy doesn't flow, and you just for some reason don't like that person.
Yeah, and
I
they're
was at a
usually
thing the other day.
Scorpios.
Say again?
I would say for me, they're always Scorpios. But anyway, even though I have Scorpio in my 12th house, I think it is.
Yeah, Scorpio in the 12th, and your north node is in Scorpio.
So what does it mean? They're too similar to me?
Where you're going, the direction you're going. In
Okay.
this life. So you're going to be learning about the Scorpio things, which is part of this stuff, the occult, the metaphysical, all the eighth house stuff,
Got it.
other people's resources, death and rebirth. So you're going to have some death and rebirth in your life, changes that you have, transformation. And you left, what was it, Taurus. So in your past life, you would have had it easier. Taurus is about luxury, lazy, nice things, take my time, stubborn, all that kind of stuff. It's ruled by Venus. So you went from kind of like, I don't know, maybe the easy life to a little bit more challenging life this time. But it's prompting you to work with your abilities, right? So prompting you to develop your skill set. And also with it, I think there's a level of acceptance that you're getting with yourself that you're not crazy, right? Because you
That's for
spend your
sure.
life thinking, oh, I'm all effed up.
Yeah.
And it's really, part of it is working with an ability and learning how to utilize it in your life. So moving forward, you grow and develop, and as you become more comfortable with it, you become more at ease, and everything else starts to balance out. Until you get there, though, it's a roller coaster. Because
Yeah.
I rode that train.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Now, what about Liz? What does she have?
Well, let's see here. Her north node is in Aries. South node is in Libra. So she's learning more about the self. Aries is independent. It's an initiator. It's starting. So where you were working, I guess, on balancing a balancing life, your most recent past life, in this life, you're working more towards being the warrior, being out there doing things. She also has an interesting chart because she's got the Sun, Mars, and Mercury and Venus, it looks like, in the 12th house. And I kind of like Mercury in the 12th because to me, Mercury in the 12th helps you connect with the other side.
Mhm.
It's really good for writers, I think, because when you have that creative flow, a lot of writers will say that they're downloading the information. They sit down to write and they just start downloading the information. They'll see it and they'll write what they're seeing, or they'll hear it and they'll write what they're hearing.
Mhm.
To me, that's a Mercury 12th house thing. And also, if you start to do a lot of meditation, you might start to hear stuff and get a better
Told you.
connection
Told
with
you.
the other side. Huh?
I've told her that before.
Yeah, and the sun's there too. The sun, you want to be behind the scenes. Venus, there's a lot of humanitarian, there's a lot of sacrifice stuff here, a lot of healing stuff with that sign. And it's funny because it's Leo. So Leo likes to stand out, right? Likes to be the actor of the drama. But that actor wants to be hidden in the 12th house while he communicates. And it might be sporadic because you got Mars there too. So
Interesting.
yeah, it is. It's pretty interesting. It's a very, you can look at it like it conflicts itself because it wants to be behind the scenes, and yet the signs that are there want to be out. You know what I mean?
It makes
Mhm.
sense though, because I
Interesting.
think, yeah, the voice that I have, I'd rather be at the front of the stage for other people and being the one that's helping to bring, you know what I mean? Like bring other people up with me versus being alone and the attention all on me.
Yeah, and it's Mars there too, so you could have you're the warrior for it, right? So you could have a lot of passion about it, or you could get angry about it. It
I
depends
do
on how
both
you work.
fairly well.
Depends on how you work that energy.
I mean, I've never seen you angry. I can't even imagine Liz being angry. Like, I'm sure it
Really?
happens,
Well,
Oh,
she'll
but
keep it hidden. If
yeah,
Mars in the
she
12th
never.
house, she's not gonna express it.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I never see it.
but when she does decide to knock it out, it'll come out. It's right there with the sun. Her Mars conjuncts her sun, so they're 1 degree apart. So it's good vitality, but it's all 12th house hidden. So you could do a lot to help people. You could do a lot for humanity, hospital work, healing work,
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it.
So, as far as rising signs versus moon signs, so since those are the three that like is the entry level, you start learning, the big three placements. So, Lizzie's a Virgo rising and your Cancer moon, Leo sun, which
Mhm.
is always interesting to me because when I deal with Cancer moon people, there's the ones that I know because I have some in my family. They're a bit emotional.
Yeah.
Liz is not emotional in that same way, but I know they all, it all depends on so many different things. So, what's the basics for her, top three? What does it say about her typically?
Well, she's got. So what comes to mind to me and I'm looking to the side because the charts are over there, but with the Virgo rising, Cancer moon, Leo sun, I would think if there's issues, that she wants to have discussion over dinner, but the dinner's got to be set up just right. It's got to be planned and organized. Because the Virgo is going to come across as wanting to be organized, wanting to have everything set up. It's also mutable, so it can adapt to different situations. The Cancer moons, they like to be very helpful. They like to take care of people. It's a very motherly sign. And being
Mhm.
in the moon, it's the emotions, right? So the moon rules the emotions and sensitivity. The problem with it can be for the person who's receiving that motherly intention, they might feel that the Cancer moon person is a little too controlling. The Cancer moon person is thinking, if you just listen to me, everything is going to be all right, but you're not listening to me.
Mhm.
And then with the Leo sun, it could bring that out even a little bit more. Like I'm
Yeah,
telling
that
you,
I'm shoving it down your throat.
yeah, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But it's a good combination. It's an interesting combination. It's good organizational skills, right? You come across as well organized, put together. Moon, very caring, compassionate. There's also some intuition thrown in there with the moon. It's a water sign. It's a gut feeling. It rules the stomach. And Leo, you wanna be acknowledged for what you do. You want to be uh, um, out there doing it. So, which is funny because the Leo wants to stand out, right? It's royalty. He wants to stand out and be seen. But you have it in the house that wants to be hidden. So it's like your flashlight is dim, but it's still
The
shining.
batteries don't work.
Yeah, exactly.
It flickers on and off depending on the situation. It adapts. Do I need to be shiny and bright or not?
Yeah, yeah. And it's good for organizing, good for setting things up.
Yeah,
Any
thank God.
clear cut like pitfalls where you're like, ooh, this combination could bring this. I mean, I know you mentioned a few things that like
Well, so you
that I'm
got
already thinking about. But
it's all 12th house. So you got what they call a stellium in the 12th house. You got 4 planets in there at the time, and all this stuff is accurate. So the 12th house is also the house of hidden enemies. So I would
oh,
say if there's people
mhm.
who don't like you, you're not going to see them right off the bat because you have them hidden in the 12th house. The 7th house
Huh.
is your open enemies, and oh, that's where the moon's at. Let's see, where's your? I got both charts up. Okay, yeah, the 4th house is. I mean, the 7th house is your open enemies. So there might be people who act like they're friendly, but they might not be.
Same.
What I would recommend for you, because you have that Mercury there, I would meditate on that stuff. Any of
Okay.
that kind of stuff, I would do a meditation on and see what information I get. Because you also have Venus in the 12th house, which is what you attract, and it's hidden. It's in the 12th house, so that could be people who are wounded that you want to help heal. That you can bring a sense of, I guess, love and relief to. It's a good placement. I mean, it's a lot of planets in the 12th house, so you're digging up a lot of stuff.
Ugh,
Mhm.
it sounds like a lot
Yeah.
of work.
So, what
All
about
right,
my
let's
top
do Lori.
three?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I know, but
What about what?
ish. My top three. fire and air. I don't have water, but have abilities. I don't know. I guess it doesn't require water. Maybe.
And let me do this.
Yeah, no rush.
Well, I wanna pull up the chart as just the chart because the two charts are a
Yeah, it's
little
a lot
bit,
to look at.
a little bit tougher to. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4. If this is right, so you have Venus, Venus, Saturn, Sun, Mercury in the first house. So Saturn in the first house is going to be you being hard on yourself,
Mm,
or you
shocking.
trying to be disciplined with yourself. Saturn in the first house Saturn is the lesson teacher, right? The taskmaster, and you have it in the house of self. So you're going to be. Wait a minute. Let me do this here.
No worries. No
So
worries.
actually, you have your moon is in the 12th house in Sag with Neptune. So that's going to give you that same thing is going to give you that intuition. It's, to me, the 12th house is the subconscious mind. It's the other side, but it's ruled by hospitals, institutions, the military, hidden enemies. You might have with Neptune, there may be illusions about who your hidden enemies are. You may not see them clearly because Neptune brings with it illusion, and you don't see things clearly, or you see them the way you want to be than the way they really are.
Percent. I know that name. You can think of it, Liz. Yeah, we have very recent examples of exactly what you're talking about.
I'm getting a name, but I'm not going to say it. Okay. And then you have Uranus in the 11th house, which is the house of groups and friends. So you're going to have unusual friends. Are you going to be part of unusual groups, which
Well,
is kind of cool.
that's true.
Coven.
Your 10th house, you have a stellium. You have Mercury, the Sun, and Pluto in the 10th. So to me, when you have your Sun and Mercury in the 10th house, you know, your career reputation are important. You're going to shine in your career. There's probably going to be a lot of communication in your career because Mercury's there. But you also have Pluto, and Pluto is a planet of transformation. So at some point, your career reputation would have taken a nosedive, a death and rebirth in your reputation, or death and rebirth when you deal with authority figures. And the interesting thing is, I know that your dad passed, and Pluto, the 10th house also represents the father. So drugs, alcohol, death and rebirth, that's all Pluto, and that's in the 10th house with dad. The 9th house, you have Venus, which is, you know, your schooling, higher education. It's your philosophy on life. It's how you think things. It's long distance travel. You like to travel in luxury. If you travel, you like it to be nice. And it actually rules your sun because you're a Libra. Libra's ruled by Venus. Traveling is probably something that's kind of important to you. And your idealism, the things you believe in, your belief system is in that same house. So it's going to be a nice thing. 8th house, you have Saturn. That's 8th house ruled by Scorpio. That's death, rebirth, transformation. Again, you know, Saturn there, it's going to be tough. It also deals with other people's resources, insurance, inheritance, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Well, not rock and roll, but sex and drugs, transformation. So you're going to have a level of discipline to all that kind of stuff. Or you're going to learn lessons about that kind of stuff. That's all tied to the planet Saturn. And your Saturn is in Leo. So your Saturn's got to be somewhere close to her sun.
Maybe that's our connection.
Well, you would be like an old soul to her. 5 degrees, yeah. You're oh, wait. I got
When you're laughing, James,
yeah,
and looking at my
because
chart.
I'm looking here and I'm seeing Saturn. I'm seeing the Mars in Leo, but I'm not looking at the natal because they're lapped within each other. So her Leo's 28 degrees, so that's too far out for the Saturn. But Saturn connection, we have to look. I'm gonna pull these together afterwards because now you got me thinking about it. Saturn is karmic. There would be a karmic connection. So we'll look at that.
Yeah, and then we can update. We can update it on here. Liz and I'll just talk through it. That'll be cool. Yeah.
Well, my Saturn is in Sag.
Say that again.
My Saturn's in Sag, in Sagittarius.
Saturn in Sag. Yeah, it is 14 degrees.
And I'm a
your
double
Saturn
Sag.
sits on, it's a little bit off of Lori's Neptune.
My
which is
Your
Saturn's in your
Saturn and my Neptune.
Well,
Having a
actually, you know what?
party.
Her Saturn, 14 degrees, hits your ascendant at 11 degrees, so that's a karmic connection.
Oh, see, I knew it.
Yeah, it's a karmic connection from the past.
I knew
If
it.
your Saturn's hitting her ascendant, yeah, and maybe in the last life, Liz was the older teacher and you were the pupil.
And now we transitioned
Wait.
in this life. That's
Wait,
so
wait.
fun.
We're just trying it out.
There's the whole thing with they call it synastry, where you put the two charts together and then you can compare them, and then you could see the energy, how it works between the two of you. I'll put that together for you guys.
That's
I think
fun.
that'll be interesting.
Next time on Beyond Dimensional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
and
love
then
it.
you have Mars in the seventh house, Lori. So that's relationships they can bring out the passion in you. Relationships of any kind, people, marriage, friends, all that kind of stuff. And you could be protective of that. But you have it in the air sign, so you might overthink things when it comes to those things, relationships.
Sounds familiar. Sounds accurate. I think that's right. Does it also say doomed to have shitty relationships until maybe, I don't know, 50? And then, I can have something to look forward to because,
Well,
man, I
Mars,
tell
right?
ya.
Mars is going to add that passion. It's funny because I did another podcast where we were talking about Mars. And Mars can be either anger or passion, right? And anger and passion are the same energy. It just depends on how you decide to use it.
Yeah.
So you can learn to be passionate more and angry less.
I don't feel like I'm angry though. Am I angry much, Liz? I get feisty. When I get passionate about something, it can come across a little angry because I get so insistent.
Well, feisty too. Long as the outlet is that push of that push of energy is released positively, then you're fine, right? Long as you don't shank nobody.
And I haven't done that.
Mars
I've been
rules.
good.
Mars rules the knives, so you might shank them, but it can get all over the place because Gemini is an air sign. Air signs have a tendency to overthink things.
Yeah, it sounds like me. Sorry, Liz. What were you going to say?
No. I was gonna say, like, I think you don't have like angry out. I mean, I've seen you a little bit of angry outbursts of like when we're like you're impassioned about something and annoyed because I think you're really the protective relationship thing for you goes really deep.
And it's the
And if
bane of my
somebody,
existence.
yeah, and if someone
that's-
fucks with someone you love or care about, particularly in yourself too, like you have a hard time being like letting it go. I know surface level, it's like doesn't matter, but it's like it actually like stains your inside.
It does. And that's a Libra thing too, isn't it?
Yeah.
The balance.
You
and
want to have balance,
justice
yeah, and
fair.
it's part of your 10th house. Your Libra's in the 10th, so that's your career reputation. So
Mhm.
you want to make sure everything is balanced.
Yeah.
It also rules government, authority figures, and stuff like that. So there's a sense of authority with the person has a sense of authority or carries the vibe of authority with the 10th house sun, right? And so you want balance. And you got Mercury in Libra too, so you're going to push for balance. And you got Pluto and Mercury too, so you're going to fight to destroy and rebuild things with balance. And then you got the moon your moon is in Sag. Sag is the fire sign. So the moon is emotion, so it can be an impulsive surge of like emotion, passion, anger, and then it can subside. It's in the 12th house, so that's going to keep it what you're thinking subconsciously and what you're expressing. Even if what you're expressing is kind of a little bit aggressive, what you're thinking is a lot worse.
Yep. Totally. Yeah. Especially when I feel like someone else is being wronged. I'm much better at fighting for other people than myself. But if I feel like someone else is being unfairly treated, it will drive me to insanity. Like I can't handle it. I always feel like I'm responsible to fix it and like I need to do something and like I have to stand up and be that person. I'm very bad at doing it for myself. I'm getting better, but for other people it comes out really strong.
Well, and the career field you're in, I think that there's a lot of Libras in that career field. They want the fairness and the justice within that environment.
Yeah, but the people that I work for are usually not those people.
Well, because a lot of that stuff is unfortunately politically motivated, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so a lot of times the political narrative doesn't coincide with the fairness.
Yes.
And so it's
Correct.
skewed one direction or the other. But the people who are in a position to control that are going to go with the narrative they're being fed because they don't want to lose their job.
Mhm.
And so the person who wants to fight for fairness ends up having a problem because it's like, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's why a lot of people won't say anything. They'll just stay in that and say, okay, well, you know what? They start to decrease their fight for people, and they start to think, okay, well, I'm just going to go paycheck to paycheck. And they're
Yeah.
like, and then the person beneath them is saying, well, it's not fair. They're doing this to me. You're supposed to help me, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, well, I'm trying. And a lot of people will help to align, because if the pushback becomes great, then they're going to stop and they're going to turn around to the other person and say, hey, you know what? I'm not losing my blah, blah, blah paying job to help you with your blah, blah, blah paying job, and affect my family to prove you're right, which you are right, but what can we do?
Yeah, I'm the dumb one who's like, I don't care. I will make sure this is fair, even if I get eliminated. Anyway, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, I was just curious because he sent us 2 charts.
Yes.
So we have a
What's the
natal
difference?
one and then the solar one where like the birth, like the position is different. I was like, wait a second, that's a day. It says August 20th at like 11:32, and I'm like, that's wrong.
Nope.
What's that about?
That's my intent to confuse you.
You nailed.
So here's the thing. If you look at
Mission
both those
accomplished.
charts, and you look at the sun on both those charts, you're going to see that your sun in both charts is at 28 degrees, 2 minutes Leo. So the natal chart is the chart that was created the day you were born. So as soon as you took your breath, Leo was at 28 degrees, 2 minutes, if I'm reading it right from here. And that's your natal chart. That's when you were born. That's where the planets were. Your solar return is basically your birthday chart. So if you look at your solar return, you look at the sun. In astrology, your solar return is when the sun goes all the way back to the same degree in minutes it was on the day you were born. So on your solar return, your sun's still going to be at 28 degrees, 2 minutes Leo. It just happens to be that 28 degrees, 2 minutes Leo happened on a different day this year. So it happened a
And
day
does it happen
before.
every year?
It happens every year, but it's not always on the same date you were born. Neither is the time. If you look at the time is different
Yeah, totally.
because the planets are traveling. But then when you look at the sun, where the sun is on your solar return, that's where your focus is going to be. Where your moon is, that's where your emotions are going to be. And where your ascendant is, that's kind of how you're going to present yourself this year. So that solar return chart overlays over your natal chart. So your natal chart is not going to change, right? The energy that you came into this life with is your natal chart. So that's the core of who you are, where your soul is when it came in. The solar return is the journey that soul is going to take that year. So the influence is how the energy of the planets is going to affect you that year. I'll give you an example. On my chart in 2020, I don't know if I told you guys this last time, well, that I predicted my father's passing.
No.
I
Yeah.
remember
Oh,
that.
you did?
Yeah, and
So
I was with you in 2020 when you predicted that. We
yeah,
worked
you're the one I
together then.
called when I called out that day
That's right. Yep.
and told you I wasn't coming in for that reason.
Yep.
That's
But yeah,
crazy.
so I looked at my chart on my birthday and I saw Saturn, Sun, Pluto, and something else were conjunct in my 8th house. And the 8th house is the house of death. Saturn is the father figure. And so I saw that, and I saw the sun, and it was also an indicator globally of something big change globally. And what happened? We had the pandemic. So when I saw the 8th house, the astrologer that I talked to, I called her and said, hey, I want a session. And I had a session with her. And I'm like, this feels like my dad's going to pass this year. And she's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, look at all the 8th house. Saturn is there. Sun is there. Maybe Pluto was there. Something else was a stellium in there. And my dad passed in September of that year.
Yeah. I remember.
of a massive heart attack.
God, that's
Yeah,
wild.
Yep. And I remember, and
Wow.
correct me if my Alzheimer's is kicking in here, but what I remember is that leading up to that, so you found out that information, and leading up to that, it was almost like waiting. Like you were like,
yeah,
okay, this is going to happen. When is it going to happen? It was like, it was such a hard time because you're like, okay, this is what I see. This is what I feel. It's even in the chart, but like, is this really happening? Didn't you like know a couple days right before?
yeah. He had gone and he had fractured his hip,
That's right. Yep.
and so what happened was he had fractured his hip, and we had a person that helped my mom and dad because they were elderly. They would come to the house, and they found my dad on the kitchen floor.
That's right.
Because he had fallen down and he fractured his hip and he couldn't get up the night before. So it's interesting because I had dreams of finding my father on the kitchen floor.
Yeah.
And him passing. I had it like 4 or 5 times within, a couple of years before this actually happened. So we took him to the hospital and they did the surgery. And then now we're in COVID, so we couldn't see him. Right. So they had all this stuff going on. And he was not happy. He had a hard time coming out of the anesthesia. They had to intubate him. And then when he got out, he went to convalescent home to get treatment and therapy for his hip. But he was only there maybe 4 days and had a heart attack and passed away. Astrologers actually going into 2020 were saying there's going to be a big event. And because those are outer planets, Saturn, Neptune, those are what they call outer planets, it's going to affect on a global level. The personal planets, Venus, Mars, those are more on a personal level to the individual. So that was universal, and
Makes
it hit
sense.
pretty good.
Yeah. So if something like that happens, is that something that like majority of people's charts would like because it's global, would like a majority of people's charts actually show that, and everyone would kind of be like, oh, it's like a community. Like if everyone went by astrology on the planet, could we
Well,
have
they would all have
collectively seen that?
that stellium in
Yeah.
Capricorn. Where
Yeah.
it hits in their chart would be different.
Okay.
So for me, that stellium was in the eighth house. For you, it probably would have been in your 5th house, maybe
Mm.
4th, 5th house. So it would have been home, and Lori would have hit in. It would have hit in the 2nd house,
What second house again?
resources, finances, the
Mm.
things you value, money, stuff like that.
Interesting.
It's interesting though to think that it would have had collectively the planet been reading astrology. We were all like, oh, look at that, guys. We should probably look out for some sort of global situation.
Yeah, is that
Well,
well, the shit's gonna hit the fan here?
Yeah, we should better fuck up. Years ago, guys, can you just think about time flying the fuck by?
Well, so now,
Crazy.
right now, the big thing is you got Pluto leaving Capricorn and has gone into Aquarius. So that's an outer planet. That's
yeah.
a
So what's next?
world impact. So things should be
Trump.
changing and become more Aquarius and less Capricorn. So me as a Capricorn, I should be relieved because Pluto, death and destruction, is leaving my sun sign. It's going into Aquarius. So I'm going to see how things go for my daughter. She's an Aquarius, and it's a 20-year cycle going through.
My mom's an Aquarius. Ooh.
That's why I was saying something just ended, and I think it's this cycle for Libras and I think Pisces, a few signs, and it's left us to go into this 20-year cycle with Aquarius and these other signs. I don't remember which is which, but
It's going to have some impact on the air signs, but everybody will feel it a little bit. It's going to be a shift in energy. Those that are more sensitive to energy are going to feel it more than those who are not. And Aquarius is ruled by the planet Uranus, so it's unpredictable. It's change. It's humanity. So they're predicting a lot of changes within humanity. More truths coming out.
Yeah.
All the bullshit that they've been lying to us about is going to start
I
floating
don't
its way
know.
to the top.
or
I
come
don't know if I
those
can handle
ETs.
it. I might be back into ignorance is bliss phase.
No, but they're going to talk more about like the alien encounters
Yeah.
and the ET
Yeah.
and the technology, and like that's been coming.
And the conspiracies that have all been covered up. All
Well,
that 12th
Uranus and
house
Aquarius
shit.
are technology.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then you got to kind of keep an eye
Totally.
on AI. What's AI going to do? Because that thing can get dangerously utilized out there for
Mhm.
good as well as bad. It's a shame, whenever we get something new in technology or what have you that helps humanity, somebody always finds a way to weaponize it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Somebody
It's
always
really
finds a way
sad.
to profit off the weaponizing of it.
Of course. That's what we're all
Otherwise,
about here.
why weaponize it if you can't
Why,
profit?
it's all about money. Who
It
profits,
is.
right? It's
Yeah,
always all
I
about
have a
money.
theory, right? If it's between profits and your life, you're dead.
Yeah,
Mhm.
1,000%. We talk about that on a couple episodes, like so
Yeah.
insane. So
What a
anyway,
nice
I
way
guess,
to end this.
I guess next time we're gonna have to talk
We're all
about
dead.
more.
No.
So in January, we'll have to do something predicting the
Yeah.
year ahead and
Yeah.
talk about all of us individually, what's going on, but also from a global
Global.
perspective, a local perspective. So that would be fun for us to do with you, James, if you're open to that.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome to look at the year coming.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we should
Please.
definitely plan.
Yes.
That works
So
for
everyone
me.
can look forward to it. You heard it here first. The dawning of the age of Aquarius is back, guys.
It is
We're
indeed.
gonna all play that
Well,
music. So
if you
I
think
could-
about it, right? So even this platform, podcasting, right? And people like you and me, I'm be doing a little bit of this myself. People are like Joe Rogan, right? People are listening
Mhm.
more to podcasters than mainstream media.
That's right.
More and more people are seeing very clearly the bias and bullshit of mainstream media. And so they're going to independent people, the regular Joes and Joannes, who are actually researching the stuff and saying, hey, well, we found out this. Even there, you got to vet what you get because
Totally. It's
you don't
tainted
know
by
if
their
there's
own belief
plants,
system. Yeah.
but at least you have a more unbiased back and forth conversation. So that's all
Totally.
Aquarius stuff. We're going to talk about this, and then you can formulate your own thought. Your critical thinking can kick in, and you're not just a sheep listening and saying, "Oh yeah, that's true."
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah,
So
I think
it's
that's
going to
great.
get interesting. And then these kind of podcasts where you're dealing with, beyond dimensional, dealing with things other than the physical. It's pretty awesome.
Well, Jim, as always, it was a huge pleasure. I'm excited for the new year reading. I think we all could use it, and hopefully we can get that done and dusted, ready for our new year. But thank you again. It's always wonderful talking to you, and you just have so much wisdom and insight. And I feel like you know me. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird gift that you have, where you like look at a piece of paper that's like in a little like diagram, and you're like, I know this person. It's wild and bizarre, but thank you so much. This is
It's
great.
like, don't try to lie to me. I know what you're really about.
Yeah, I've
Exactly.
seen it all. I've seen it all.
100.
Exactly.
It's kind of like it's magical. You have the insights without having to actually have a conversation, but I dig it.
Well,
I dig it.
yeah. Then he has
Yeah,
mediumship to go along with it.
Mhm.
So he's
that's
pretty.
usually the first one for me that kicks in right off the bat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. We'll
of course.
see you in January then. We'll talk about the year to come.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me here. It's fun talking to you guys. It's fun to learn,
Always.
even to learn from you guys what you guys have to say. So anytime, just let me know.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Okay.
All right, everybody. We will check in next time on Beyond Dimensional. We will add in the show notes where you can find Jim. He is fantastic. Psychic, medium, astrologer, all the goodies. So go check him out.
I'm on Instagram, Psychic Medium Jim.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.